I've been in crypto for 7 years. I've started a 100 million market cap token. I've had a platform that had tens of millions of dollars in TVL. I've seen founders come and go. I've seen projects fail. I've seen projects succeed. And in this video, I'm going to condense down 7 years of brutal truths I have learned being in crypto. So let's get started. Brutal truth number 1, you are not early to crypto. According to the National Cryptocurrency Association, 1 in 5 Americans is already invested in crypto. The very fact that there is a National Cryptocurrency Association should tell you that you're not early. In fact, I would say that most of the investing public is already invested in crypto. And I think this is what a lot of people are getting wrong, which is the entire global population will not be investing in crypto. In fact, most of the people who have money are already invested in crypto. What we're seeing now is the final institutional push toward investment. But for the most part, the investing public around the world that has the money to spare on crypto is already in the market. People want to believe they're early because they've seen the gains of being early. They've seen those parabolic runs in Bitcoin, in Ethereum. And if they can convince themselves that they're early, if they can believe in their heart that they're early, then they will be willing to take risks on projects that they probably shouldn't take risks on, thinking that there'll be another buyer. And that, I believe, is kind of the wrong way to approach the market. You need to now understand that in 2021, most of the investing public came into crypto. You need to look at the statistics. If you look at the number of YouTube subscribers, Twitter followers, YouTube views, the number of impressions that crypto influencers got during 2021, it was at a record high. And that's because the investing public came into crypto with their liquidity, with their money during the pandemic, and they really never left to an extent. We've never seen the metrics go down back to what they were before 2020. And that's because you're not early. And that's okay. Each cycle is different. The reality is that this cycle is going to be about projects that stand out based on utility, based on security, based on team, and based on marketing. Not every project is necessarily going to succeed the way they did in 2020. Back in those days, there was very little liquidity, and so the market could move up very fast. You could buy almost anything in 2020 and it would go up because the entire market was going up. Now you will see that effect to a degree this time, but people are more educated and the market is simply more diverse now. You have real world asset projects which are backed by actual buildings and businesses. You have stablecoin projects that are backed by US treasuries. So the market is so mature now, and the next phase in crypto is going to be around projects that can generate real value. So that's where the market is, and I think a lot of people are missing that because they don't want to accept that they're not early and that things are different this time. Brutal truth number 2. So many people are looking to relive 2021. But the reality is 2021 is gone, okay? Back then, there was almost nobody in the market. People had completely forgotten about crypto. Ethereum itself had very little utility. You have to remember that every single cycle, there's been an invention, an innovation that has driven a new interest in crypto. And in 2019, 2020, Uniswap was invented. Ethereum had DeFi for the first time, and it was the beginning of a new era for crypto. In 2020, we were all locked in our houses. We were getting money from the government. Uniswap had just launched, and nobody had anything to do but look at the markets. So it was a completely different world. And people are expecting the same thing again, and they're going to be disappointed. People are clinging on, hoping for that parabolic run, that once-in-a-lifetime run that was 2020. But things are absolutely different now. You have billions of dollars of stablecoins, you have financial institutions, and you have huge corporations that are coming into crypto. The game has completely changed because of that. If you look at the data on the amount of liquidity in the market, you can see there is just so much more, billions in stablecoins now, holding up the market, propping up the valuations. There has been 1,000 days of aggregate withdrawals in crypto, which means that the prices have been declining in aggregate for 1,000 days. And that is because there is so much more liquidity to drain from the market. You need to understand that this time really is different, and clinging onto 2021, clinging onto the coins you have from 2021, clinging onto the narratives you have from 2021, this is holding you back, and you need to start thinking about how to play 2025 in the right way. Brutal crypto truth number 3. Technology is just a narrative. In 2021, you have to understand that everything was going up. People forgot why markets go up. They forgot why the prices are going up. It actually wasn't for the reasons they thought it was. They convinced themselves in believing it was because of the technology. They convinced themselves into various narratives around different projects that actually weren't the fundamental reason why the project was going up. Technology is not actually the reason why a token goes up. Look at all of the chains that are faster than Ethereum, that have higher TPS, higher throughput, and have the potential to scale to billions of users. Most of them have fallen on deaf ears and have disappeared into the ether. No one pays attention to them. There's no TVL. There are no transactions. They're basically ghost chains, even though the tech is technically better. So you have to ask yourself, if it's not the tech, then what is it? I believe it's traffic, eyeballs, and having a secure platform that doesn't just fall apart in front of you when you're actually using it. And Ethereum has all of these things. The network effects are there. The eyeballs are there. What made those projects go up in 2021 was not the technology, and it wasn't the technology narrative. It was just liquidity coming back into the market and people paying attention for the first time to crypto. So it's important to remember that technology is just a narrative, and it's not the primary driver of a crypto token's performance. In order to see if something's actually fundamental to a project's success, you need to see that if that element is taken away, does the project still succeed? And the reality is there's really only one thing that determines whether a product succeeds or fails, and that is eyeballs, that is traffic. It's not technology. It's not even founding team. It's not the logo, that's for sure. Just look at meme coins, right? Meme coins don't have technology. Sometimes they don't even have a founder. Sometimes it's just the community. But they have a network effect and they have traffic, and those are some of the most successful projects in crypto. So you need to understand technology was just a narrative. It was something people clinged onto in 2021 to allow themselves to believe that they were early and ride an unprecedented wave of liquidity. But the reality is traffic and eyeballs is the primary driver of crypto price. Brutal crypto truth number 4. Most people have completely lost why they are in crypto. They came in to make money. That's why we're all here, is to make money in crypto. But they ended up in communities holding bags for tokens that don't have a chance, spending too much time on X, in Telegram, and looking at charts that have no chance of success. They ultimately ended up staying for the vibes of crypto instead of focusing on their portfolios and the outcomes that could change their life. People get stuck on personalities in communities, focused on the logo, the branding of a project, the chance for 1,000x or even 100x, holding on to the belief that this token has a chance when the market has moved on, people have moved on to new projects, and every single cycle, there is a new set of top-tier projects and fantastic communities, and it's better often to cut your losses and move to those communities rather than staying stuck in the past. And I see so many investors making this mistakes. When I look at portfolios, I see people with dino coins that are going nowhere. They're hoping for some kind of big institutional partnership in the future. They're hoping for some kind of technical innovation to be noticed, when in reality, the eyeballs, the network effects, and the top-tier talent has basically moved on to new things. So it's very important to remember to watch your own portfolio, think about what communities are the strongest for that cycle, and pay attention to those instead of living in the past when it comes to crypto. Brutal crypto truth number 5, you probably don't have an edge in the market. At least not the edge you think you have. Now, if you're following mainstream YouTubers, if you're following mainstream X accounts, and you're in the big Telegram groups and communities, you're probably not one of the people who has an edge in the market. And that's okay. Ask yourself these questions. Did you engage in a massively popular presale? Are there hundreds of thousands of users in the project? Are there mainstream YouTubers covering the project? In this case, you probably don't have an edge, and that's okay. To obtain an edge in the market, you need a framework for evaluating projects at an early stage that does not rely on mainstream media sources. Have a look at my prior videos to see some of the frameworks I use to evaluate crypto projects. Brutal crypto truth number 6. If you don't understand liquidity, stay away from DeFi. The reality is, small tokens pump not because they have a small number of users, but because the liquidity is very low. Many people don't realize this. You can have a token that has very few users and very thick liquidity, and it will not pump. Conversely, you can have a token that has a lot of users and very low liquidity, and it's going to pump. Liquidity in crypto is defined by two assets in a decentralized pool and the ratio between them. And if you don't understand how this can affect the price and price movements, you may be subject to manipulation by insiders who could potentially rug pull the liquidity and walk away with the tokens, or by price manipulations, which make the token look like it's going up very fast and has a lot of potential, but in reality, insiders are dumping on you. So it's super important to understand liquidity and how it can be manipulated. Otherwise, you could potentially be subject to loss in crypto. Brutal crypto truth number 7 is Bitcoin dominance. This lesson has probably cost me millions of dollars, and I don't want you to make the same mistake. And that is that Bitcoin leads the market and outperforms altcoins for a painfully long period of time before alt season begins. I don't think a lot of people quite realize this because they came in 2021 when altcoins were massively outperforming Bitcoin for a very small period of time. But the reality is that Bitcoin dominance climbs for most of the bull market before finally collapsing in a parabolic run of altcoins. If you had invested in Bitcoin, you would have made much more money to this point relative to your favorite altcoin. That means that you would then have more money to rotate into altcoins later, and that costs you a lot. So people need to follow Bitcoin dominance and pay attention to its developments, otherwise they're missing out on huge amounts of money. It's incredibly important, and it's something so many missed because they came in during 2021 when altcoins were massively outperforming Bitcoin for about 90 days. If you are interested in optimizing the bull market, following Bitcoin dominance, and 30 other metrics that we track very closely in the mastermind, there's a link in the video description below to learn more. Over the past 7 years, I have learned so much about crypto and made mistakes that have cost me millions of dollars. So many people are coming into this market not understanding how crypto has changed over the past 5 years. If you want to learn more about how to maximize the bull market, subscribe to my videos for more content. Thank you.